Hi, this is Frode and welcome back to Actualize Notes TV. As you can see, we don't have any other place to teach than this room filled with tubes, ventilation systems, machines and things like that. But we'll have to do with that until I've arrived at my new apartment. And then we'll get to a more cozy room. Actually, this is quite cozy, you could say. Kinda like it. So anyway, today we have another great book, Letters from a Stoic, by Seneca. Letters from a Stoic. No subtitle for today's book. Seneca was a Roman statesman and philosopher. He was also an advisor to the Emperor Nero. And he was born around 4 AD or BC. Can't quite remember, but it was around Jesus' time. And he's a really lovely philosopher with a lot of great wisdom. So if you're into Stoicism, and that we have more books on Stoicism, by the way, and if you're into practical philosophy that you can apply to your own life to make it better and become a better person, I think you'll love the book. For now, let's take a look at some of my favorite big ideas. 5 of them here. The first one is vices. Seneca tells us a lot about that when we associate with people, especially in large groups. Many people have a tendency to make vices seem attractive. For example, unhealthy behaviors like always eating sweets, drinking soda, or overeating, or any other things like that. He talks about these arena games that people had at the time he lived, around 2,000 years ago. These gladiator shows, where people would be chained together and without any chance of running away from the arena. And then they would let wild animals loose on those people. That was entertainment back in that time. And when people went to lunch, well, they had to have some entertainment while eating lunch. So what did they do then? They lined up some people and slit their throats. The point I want to make is that in the beginning, a sane person can go into a place like that and say that it's horrible and it's not right. But after a while, he becomes so persuaded by the other people who cheer and laugh in those crowds that he also gets the disposition to think it's something good, those gladiator shows. And this goes for all our other vices. So, we're really talking about negative influences, the way people influence us. And Jim Rohn, the business philosopher, also talks about this in one of his great books. And he says that influencing with negative people is just like drinking a glass of deadly poison. It's just as deadly, though it works a bit less slowly. But we don't want to drink glasses of poison and have glasses of poison in our friends. So Seneca teaches us that we need to associate with people who are likely to improve us and whom we can improve if they are open to it. He also says we need to retire into ourselves. So, by reading a good book from some wise people, which we'll go into now, in our second big idea, he says, choose yourself a Cato. And Cato was a Stoic sage, which Seneca seemed to be really interested in embodying and living up to. And the basic idea here is that we need to choose a moral tutor who we really admire. It can be our favorite thinker, artist, athlete, business person, or whatever. And then we let that person into our minds. We learn everything that we can about that person, and then we let them into our minds so they can stay here and watch us as we go about our daily duties. So they can always lift up what we're doing during our days. He also has a great saying, without a ruler to make crooked without a ruler to measure it against, you can't make crooked straight. And the point he makes here is that if you don't have wise people to watch what they do and what they move away from, you can't make yourself straight in this life to actualize your highest potential. So we'll want to choose one person who we really admire and kind of have that person in the back of our minds all the time and ask ourselves, what would this person do? What would they do in this situation? What would they do in this situation? So who's your Cato? Our third big idea is will turns into disposition. Seneca says that making noble resolutions is all good in and of itself, but it's not as good as making a resolution and sticking to it. In other words, making habits of the behavior changes we want to see. And therefore, he says that you need to fortify your pertinacity until the will to good becomes a disposition to good. In other words, what was once hard now becomes easy. And a great way to do this, as I find out, is to soak your mind in nourishing wisdom and information from the greatest people who have ever lived. And Jim Rohn talks about this and says that you can skip a meal or two, but you can't skip your 30 minutes of reading or hearing something inspirational and instructional each and every day. And that's what I'm trying to provide through this channel. 30 minutes or however long you want to watch of inspiring wisdom that you can apply to your life now. So how can you make your will to good a disposition to good? By sticking to the resolutions you have and constantly nourishing your mind with wisdom. Get on that as we get light on our computer and go on to the fourth big idea. Remedies. Seneca says that, or he says to his friend Lucilius, because all of these, the whole book is letters to his friend Lucilius, and he advises him on certain subjects, moral subjects. And he says that when you see me teach these ideas, I want you to imagine that we are lying in the same hospital ward, and we're suffering from the same illness, and I'm just trying to pass on some remedies that I know work. So when I'm teaching these ideas to you, I also want you to look at me as if I'm talking to myself. I'm suffering from these illnesses that I have found remedies for, and I'm now passing them on to you. It's not like I'm teaching you something that you're too stupid to know. It's more like passing on remedies. And by the way, he says that some people, it takes a bit of time before these remedies work. And someone, you have to ram it in. You have to ram it into people by repeating things over and over and over again, which I do quite a lot in these series. So the fifth big idea is a sound mind. Seneca's, this is a great idea. The basic idea is that we have to do our own push-ups. Anybody else can't do our personal development for us. And he tells this story about Sabinus, a rich guy who lived around the time he lived, Seneca. So this guy, Sabinus, was getting pretty old. And he started forgetting important names like Achilles from the Iliad and Odysseus from the Odyssey, which were really classic and are classic texts from the Greeks. And but he wanted to be literate. He wanted to see himself as a smart person. So what did he do? Well, he bought some slaves, and then he had each of those slaves learn each of their books, authors, really firmly. One of them would absorb the Iliad and learn everything about that. The other slave would absorb everything he could about the Odyssey, and so forth. So then he would start making nightmares for his dinner party guests. He would have these slaves at his elbows, and whenever Sabinus wanted to quote some of the greatest poets, like Homer or Horace or other great poets of that time, he would just tell the slaves to quote it to him, so he could quote it to his dinner party guests. Sabinus thought that he became as smart as all of the slaves who were around him, but that was not the case. So, the basic point here is that we have to do our own push-ups, as Jim Rohn so often talks about. Nobody else can do them for us. We have to put in the effort. Are you doing your own push-ups? Or are you trying to make some other people do your own push-ups? Read your books? Or anything else that you don't have to put in an effort to? Alright? The only way to develop a sound mind is to do the effort yourself. I am just passing on some remedies because I'm suffering from these illnesses myself. Fortify your pertinacity until the will to good becomes a disposition to good. What was once hard now becomes easy. Nourish your mind with 30 minutes of inspirational information a day. Choose yourself a Cato, a moral tutor who can constantly measure you and your actions. And be aware of how people are affecting you and how they make vices seem attractive. Right, that was a quick and somewhat meandering look at Letters from a Stoic. By the way, it's 30 minutes before nighttime for me, and I might have been a bit off in this episode, but it was really a challenge for me to see if I could record this video, even if I didn't quite feel like it, and I never record videos so late. So anyway, that was a winner for me. Quick look at Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Highly recommend it myself. For now, what's the idea that most resonated with you? That most inspired you? And what's one simple step you can take right now to embody it a bit more? Get on that as we actualize our potential and give our greatest gifts and greatest service to the world. Thanks for watching. Have another awesome day. See ya.